Hello, friends! You're watching Affection Unbound. Real life, real twists. Let's begin the journey. I'm Grace Mitchell. I never imagined I'd be standing in my cozy kitchen in Portland, Oregon, staring at divorce papers while my husband, David, grinned like he'd just won the Powerball. I'm 41, a project manager for a sustainable energy firm where the rainy days and evergreen views make everything feel a bit more introspective than it should. My life had been a steady climb. Solid career, a nest egg from years of smart saving, and a heart that still believed in second chances after losing my first husband to cancer 5 years ago. But that afternoon, when David slapped those papers on the counter and said, "I'm done pretending, Grace. Uncle's fortune is mine now. 300 million. You were just the bridge to get there." It felt like the Pacific Northwest fog had rolled right into my soul, thick and suffocating. His words hit harder than the diagnosis that took my first love. David wasn't just ending our marriage, he was admitting it had all been a calculated game. I'd seen glimpses of his opportunism before, skipping bills, charming his way out of responsibilities. But this was ruthless. His uncle had passed away the week before, a man who'd welcomed me like a daughter, and David was already twisting the knife, treating his death like a payday. I wanted to shatter the coffee mug in my hand, to yell about how low he'd sunk. But a quiet resolve washed over me, maybe echoes of his uncle's wisdom. Patience, Grace. Truth has a way of surfacing. So I swallowed the rage, grabbed a pen, and signed on the spot. "Handle the filing," I said, my voice even as a still lake. "I'll pack my things." I left our craftsman-style home in the suburbs, driving past the misty forests and coffee shops that had once felt like our shared haven, a strange calm settling in. David thought he'd outsmarted everyone, but he was clueless about the reality waiting to crash down. To make sense of how I got here, let's rewind. After my first husband, Tom, passed, I was left with $400,000 from his life insurance and our joint savings. We weren't wealthy, but we'd built a life in Portland's vibrant neighborhoods, dreaming of travel and maybe kids someday. His family insisted I keep the money. "You're only 36, Grace. Rebuild," they said. My sister-in-law took a small share for their parents, but the bulk was mine. It felt tainted at first, like a reminder of what I'd lost, but I invested it wisely, letting it grow while I dove into work. Days blurred into client meetings and strategy sessions, but nights were lonely, echoing in my one-bedroom apartment overlooking the Willamette River. I'd pour wine for one, scrolling through old photos, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. That's when David Hayes entered the picture. He was 42, a logistics coordinator at a supplier we partnered with, the type with a rugged smile and stories that could make a rainy day feel sunny. We'd bump into each other at industry mixers, chatting about supply chains or the latest green tech. One evening, at a networking event in a downtown brew pub, I opened up about Tom's battle, the emptiness that followed. Most guys would have bolted or offered empty platitudes, but David listened, sharing his own losses, his parents gone young, leaving him to fend for himself. "Life's too short for regrets," he said, clinking his glass to mine. "You've got fire in you, Grace. Don't let it dim." It was genuine, or so I thought, and soon we were grabbing hikes in Forest Park or dinners at food carts, talking dreams and fears. David grew up in rural Oregon, always chasing stability after a tough childhood, bouncing between foster homes until his uncle took him in. Uncle Victor was a timber baron turned investor, amassing wealth from forests and stocks, living on a sprawling estate outside Portland. David idolized him, but hinted at resentment. "Uncle's got it all, but he's tight-fisted," he'd say. I brushed it off as family quirks. Our dates turned serious fast. David's energy pulled me out of my shell. One crisp fall night, as we walked along the riverfront, he stopped and pulled out a ring. "Marry me, Grace. Let's build something real." I hesitated, memories of Tom lingering, but David's passion felt like a fresh start. Friends warned me it was quick, but I said yes, caught in the whirlwind. Post-wedding, David dropped a curveball. "My uncle's health is failing. Heart issues. He needs help. Mind if we move in with him?" I paused. He'd mentioned Victor before, but not the details. "Why now?" I asked. "Didn't want to overwhelm you," he replied with that disarming grin. "It's temporary, and his place is huge." I agreed, figuring it showed maturity. Victor's estate was like stepping into an old-growth forest. Log cabin vibes with modern touches, acres of pines whispering in the wind. Victor, in his late 70s, was sharp-eyed but weak, using a walker. "Welcome, Grace," he said, his handshake firm. "David's lucky." We bonded quickly. I'd chat with him about renewable energy trends while David handled errands. Victor shared tales of logging days, how he'd pivoted to eco-investments, planting more trees than he cut. David quit his job soon after, saying he'd be the caretaker. "Uncle's done so much for me. It's my turn," he explained, eyes earnest. I supported it. My salary covered us, and Victor paid his own way. At first it worked. David cooked simple meals like salmon from local markets, mowed the vast lawn, helped Victor with meds. I'd return from long days optimizing wind farm projects to find them laughing over old photos. Victor praised me often. "You're the glue here, Grace, smart and kind." But soon, David's efforts faded. I'd find him napping on the porch swing, chores undone, while a hired aide managed Victor. "Relax, babe," he'd say when I pointed out the overgrown garden. "Uncle's fine." Then the spending started. I noticed charges on our joint account: new fishing gear, a mountain bike, trips to casinos in nearby towns. "What's this $5,000 for?" I asked one night, waving the statement. He shrugged. "Uncle's loaded. Inheritance will cover it. Live a little." My stomach nodded. He'd blown $20,000 in weeks, treating my savings like his slush fund. I confronted him. "This is my money, David. From Tom, from my work." He rolled his eyes. "Once Uncle passes, we'll have millions. What's the fuss?" It chilled me. He was eyeing Victor's death like a lottery ticket. I revoked his access, but the damage was done. I considered leaving, but Victor's kindness kept me rooted. He confided in me during quiet evenings. "David's got potential, but he's impulsive. Help me watch him." As Victor's health declined, he asked for my assistance with his affairs. "I'm tying up loose ends," he said. We reviewed documents in his study, surrounded by maps of reforested lands. That's when he revealed the truth David didn't know. His fortune, once $300 million, had shrunk from bad stock bets during a market dip. He'd loaned most to conservation projects, using savings as backing. "If I can't repay, it's forfeited," he explained. "David assumes it's all his, but I've set conditions." My heart sank, but I promised to honor his wishes. David grew lazier, outsourcing care entirely, lounging with gadgets bought on credit. The tension built like storm clouds over the Cascades. When Victor died peacefully in his sleep, the estate felt empty, his legacy in the trees outside. I grieved a man who'd become family. But David? He was buzzing. "Time to celebrate our future," he said, eyes gleaming. That's when he hit me with the divorce, gloating about the windfall. I walked away, knowing the storm was just beginning. I settled into a small rental loft in Portland's Pearl District, the kind of place with exposed brick and big windows that let in the gray light of Oregon, U.S. rainy season. My new life was a blank slate, and I was sorting through job emails and condo listings when my phone lit up with David S. name. I hesitated but picked up, bracing myself. "Grace, what the hell is going on?" he shouted, voice cracking like dry timber. "The bank says Uncle's account is frozen, $300 million, and I can't touch a dime." I leaned back on my couch, picturing his smug grin from days ago crumbling. "Calm down, David," I said, cool as the Willamette breeze. "Tell me what they said." He was frantic, words tripping over each other. "They said it's tied up, something about loans and collateral. Grace, you knew something, didn't you?" I took a breath, Victor's steady voice echoing in my mind. "Your uncle told me everything," I began. "That $300 million you're banking on? It's not what you think. He invested heavily in reforestation projects, borrowing against his savings to fund them. The market crashed his stock portfolio, and he couldn't recover. The loans are due, and the bank's taking the collateral, his entire fortune, to cover it." Silence hung heavy on the line. "There's something else," I continued. "He left you $50,000 in a separate account. That's it. That's your inheritance." David's voice broke. $50,000? That's nothing. I spent everything, Grace. My savings, credit cards, all of it. Thinking I'd get millions. I could hear his world collapsing, but my sympathy was thin. "You never asked him about his plans," I said. "You just assumed you'd cash in." He started pleading, his tone shifting from panic to desperation. "Grace, you've got your savings, your job. I'm broke, unemployed, 42 years old. Help me out, please. We can forget the divorce." I almost laughed at the audacity. "You made your bed, David. I said firmly. You used me, spent my money, and disrespected your uncle's legacy. You're on your own. I hung up, my pulse steady, a weight lifting off my shoulders. I'd spent years carrying others, Tom through his illness, David through his schemes. Now, I was free. Word got back to me through old colleagues. David tried returning to logistics but botched a major contract, too distracted by his shattered dreams. He burned through the $50,000 in months, fancy dinners, a used truck, more gambling. Last I heard, he was driving for a rideshare app, barely covering rent in a rundown apartment outside the city. Part of me felt a twinge of pity, but it faded fast. He'd built his life on shortcuts and greed, and now he was reaping the consequences. Meanwhile, I found my footing. I bought a modest condo near the river, with a view of Mount Hood on clear days. The $50,000 Victor left me, split evenly as per his will, went into a savings account, a quiet tribute to his belief in doing good. I didn't need it. My job was thriving, landing contracts for solar projects that felt like a nod to Victor's eco-vision. I'd come home from long days, pour a glass of local Pinot, and sit on my balcony, feeling the city's pulse. The loneliness from Tom's death, the betrayal of David's lies, they'd shaped me, but they didn't define me anymore. Victor's memory lingered in the best way. I volunteered with a local conservation group, planting trees in areas he'd once reforested. It wasn't about the money he lost, it was about the legacy he tried to leave, something bigger than himself. Every sapling I planted felt like a promise kept, a way to honor the man who saw my worth when I doubted it myself. I wasn't the grieving widow or the duped wife anymore. I was Grace Mitchell, carving out a life rooted in purpose. Looking back, I realized David's betrayal was a strange gift. It forced me to face the truth, not just about him, but about myself. I'd been so caught up in fixing others, I'd forgotten my own strength. Now, I was building something new, one choice at a time. My condo was filled with small touches, photos of Tom's smile, a framed map of Victor's reforestation sites, and plans for a hiking trip to the Columbia River Gorge. I was alive again, not just surviving, but thriving. To anyone reading this, thank you for walking through this storm with me. Life can blindside you, grief, betrayal, the lies people tell to get ahead, but it's the comeback that matters. If my story resonates, if it sparks something in you, keep going. Dig deep, find your roots, and build something real. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories of grit and growth.